Nancy Pelosi, welcome to 7:30.
My pleasure to be with you. Good morning.
You've learnt over many years how to exercise power effectively. You made a critical intervention before President Biden stepped down. You went on television, you said, we're all encouraging him to make that decision. It's up to him to decide. What were you trying to achieve in that moment?
Well, I didn't go there for that purpose. It was a NATO meeting was taking place in Washington. We're very proud of Joe Biden's leadership in NATO, strengthening it, expanding it, growing it, and the rest. And this was the 75th anniversary. It was a big, important occasion. So when we did that, I was bringing Svetlana. She was really elected in Belarus, but now had to live in another country because of the thuggery at the top of their government and the connection to Putin there. But so that was our purpose in going that day. In the course of the time, they asked about that. And that really more is my political instinct in terms of, in a campaign, you constantly reevaluate. You constantly reevaluate about the prospect of winning. We are making a decision to win, so you make every decision in favor of winning, owning the ground with the mobilization, as I said, messaging with boldness but not menacing. Messaging but not menacing, and having the money to do so. No wasted time, the three no's, no wasted time, no underutilized resource, and no regrets the day after the election that you could have done something different in order to win. So again, you reevaluate as you go forward. My plea was really for a better campaign, because we weren't on a good track in order to win. And it wasn't for him to step aside. That was his decision. That was his decision. That was the president's decision. But, it's what we want to talk about now is Kamala Harris and winning this election. We aren't reshaping our campaign so we can talk about how we did it. We're reshaping our campaign to win to win the election, and in my case, win the House for the Democrats again, and grow our majority in the United States Senate. But it has an impact way down to state legislatures and state houses and local elections as well. So that was it. That was what it was. I didn't know what the president would do. That wasn't what it was about. It was about a decision to win. A decision to win. He made the decision that he did. Kamala took advantage of it like that. He endorsed her. She ran with the ball with the grace, the dignity, the political astuteness, the strength of knowledge of the issues, the beauty of her faith-filled life to take us that day, and chose Tim Walz to be the vice presidential candidate, who's remarkable. She's saying to the heartland of America, we're not a flyover zone for us. We're all in this together. Quite lovely.
As you just said, Kamala Harris tied up the nomination very quickly when, as we understand, you and other senior Democrats wanted an open primary. What does that tell us about Kamala Harris's political adroitness?
Well, we did have an open process. Nobody got in. And the president of the United States endorsing her gave her a running start, and her own political astuteness took her down the path. But people say, well, it wasn't open. No, it was open. Nobody came forward. And she took advantage of that opening, and here she is, our soon-to-be nominated in convention, fully nominated in convention. I guess she is nominated already, but with the formality of it at convention.
Nonetheless, there was some political adroitness on display when she did that. What do you put that down to?
Oh, well, she's very politically astute. I say of her, I've known her a long time, as you can imagine, but personally, she's a person of great faith, and that her responsibility to care about people and their well-being. That gives her strength, and the strength that she has officially, personally faith-filled, officially strong in her knowledge of the policy, of the strategy, of how to get things done. Politically very astute. It was hard for her to win for district attorney in San Francisco. It was difficult for her to win for attorney general in the state. It was a very difficult race. She very adroitly and astutely managed winning that nomination. Easier to go to the United States Senate, but she had a race, and then be vice president of the United States. So it was no surprise to anybody that she would use the time well, with grace, with dignity, with respect for President Biden, and with knowledge of the opportunity that was there.
Were you a reluctant supporter of hers at that moment when she took the nomination?
When she took the, well, she didn't take the, I placed her name in nomination for it in the state party of California, but after she put herself out there and clearly was winning the day, I was one of the early people to endorse that. But we all thought, well, open this up, they'll see the talent. Well, they did see the talent through the vice presidential process. We have a great bench. We have many leaders for the present and for the future. She has felt strongly about Tim Walz. We know him from Congress. He's a great person, so we're proud of the ticket, the freedom ticket.
I want to go back into your story. When you first ran for the number 2 leadership spot of House Democrats, you were told by senior men in the party that there was a pecking order that didn't include you. How did you win that vote?
Well, but they said, you have to understand that there are many men here who have been waiting for their chance to get one of these senior positions in the party. And so you can't break into that line. I said, no, we've been waiting over 200 years. No, I want to present what I believe to be correct policy-wise, politically, to win. And quite frankly, that pecking order has led us to defeat in 94, 96, 98, 2000, all that. I said, so don't vote for me because I'm a woman, but don't vote against me because I'm a woman. Because they were saying, who said she could run? We have this pecking order. Imagine that they would say that in this century. In this century. I said, we've been waiting 200 years.
Did any of that experience of taking on powerful people within your own party and winning, did any of that prepare you for the experience of Donald Trump?
No, no, it didn't. They were not like Donald Trump, for goodness sake. We're not talking grotesque. We're just talking more traditional, how they saw their opportunities in the Congress. And it didn't bother me. It was their problem if they were wedded to wedded to 200 years of a marble ceiling where nobody else could break in except white men. And so in any case, nothing. Nothing could prepare anybody for a president who would incite an insurrection against the Congress of the United States, in the Capitol of the United States, against the Constitution of the United States. No, we're talking something completely different.
Did Donald Trump take you by surprise, the lengths that he went to?
You know, I don't think anybody would have expected a president of the United States who takes an oath to protect and defend the Constitution to violate it in that manner, in a dangerous, violent way. No, I don't think anybody could be prepared for anybody doing that in our country. And then to see the Republicans at the end of the day vote to reject the Electoral College vote. That was stunning. He was awful, and they were his toadies.
Your description.
You know what a toady is? Yeah,
I sure do. I sure do. Your descriptions of that day are visceral. You saw his supporters headed towards Capitol Hill. Remind us what you said you would do if Trump came too.
Well, if he came as a matter of self-defense, I would have to beat him up, and I would probably have to go to jail for beating him up, and that would be okay with me.
You love the House, that august chamber where wars have been declared, where slavery was abolished, where your own father served. Trump supporters desecrated that place that day. Is it the same place for you now?
Oh, yes. I mean, they were horrible. They brought danger. They brought disgrace. They brought defecation on the floor of the Capitol. The Capitol of the United States, a symbol of of liberty and democracy to the world. They brought Confederate flags under the dome that Lincoln built when he was president of the United States, and unifying the country by winning the Civil War. And what they did was completely outrageous. But we knew at that time that we had to go back to the floor. The security was saying maybe we should take the vote in an undisclosed location to proceed with the vote for the Electoral College. I said, no, we're not. We're going to the floor of the House of Representatives. And the senators agreed. Senator Chuck Schumer would become the leader, and the minority leader and the majority leader at the time, Mitch McConnell, agreed that we should go back because that would do the most forceful statement that they lost and we prevailed in having a transfer of power, not as peaceful as it had traditionally been, because of the actions of the president to refuse to send the National Guard to encourage these people in the manner in which he did. It was disgraceful. It was disgusting. And again, I'm concerned about what they did to the Capitol for all that it stands for, but I'm more concerned about what a message it sent out about them to the world and the necessity for us to win this election.
There was a brief moment there where the Republican leadership worked with you, but that fell away and they refused to support your efforts to bring Donald Trump to justice for that day. Have you ever spoken to Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, but we
again?
prevailed that day. We prevailed that day. Yes, we prevailed.
But subsequently, when you tried to push through a bipartisan inquiry and then to vote on the impeachment, Republican leadership walked away. Have you spoken to them since? Do you still speak to them?
Well, they're not there. I mean, what's his name? McCarthy, he's gone. He's gone. His own people pushed him out of the speakership. Mitch is there. I see him a bit, but that's a shame what happened to Mitch McConnell, because he spoke that day about the president being responsible. He spoke weeks later on February 13th about the responsibility of the president in all of this, and yet he voted not to impeach, and he also voted to support Trump for president. It's really sad. It's really sad, you know. But I've known Mitch a long time. We were appropriators. We served on the Appropriations Committee, House and Senate, and so I've known him a long time, and I feel sad for him.
I want to go back over some of the key moments in your political career. You voted against the bill authorizing the war in Iraq. Did the dishonesty and the failures of the war in Iraq lead to an irreversible decline in American influence?
I hope not. I hope not. I think that there's questions raised about other suggestions we may have, and they'll say, well, your intelligence before. The intelligence had it right. The intelligence did not support the threat that they were maintaining. And it was so sad because not only me, I'm a San Francisco progressive, the top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee in the House, the top Democrat on the chairman of the committee in the Senate, Bob Graham, was from Florida, and he is considered more of a conservative in all of it. He was very, very vehemently against the war, tried to persuade his colleagues in the Senate to vote against it, but so many of them voted for it. It went forward. He even had in his own book, Intelligence Matters, he talks about suggesting impeachment of the president at the time because of the taking us to war on a false premise, but also leaving Afghanistan before our work was done there, and also ignoring other terrorist threats throughout the world and focusing on Iraq.
You made a widely publicised visit to Taiwan in 2022, a trip that got a lot of attention here. You wanted to affirm Taiwanese democracy. You said, it's essential that America and our allies make clear that we never give in to autocrats. Why is Taiwan a US interest?
Well, security in the Asian Pacific region is, and the aggressiveness of the Chinese now in the South China Sea is cause for concern. We have a history of support for Taiwan for decades in the Congress. It's bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans. It's bicameral, House and Senate. And it has been very strong in support of the democracy in Taiwan. I went there with my delegation because we were invited and we wanted to show our support. We never said that there was a change in U.S. policy. Our policy is that if whatever happens has to be done peacefully, however that is resolved. But the Chinese, they have their own domestic economic problems, this or that. They have to make Now, right before I went, Sarah, this you might be interested in, since there's interest in the region. Right before I went, like a week or so before, there was a Senate delegation, Democrats and Republicans, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. They went to Taiwan. Nobody had a clue, right? Did they make any fuss? But when I went, because I had been on their case since Tiananmen Square about trade, about proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, technology, and about human rights, they had to make a fuss.
As you say, you referred to Tiananmen Square. You had been, as you put it, on the case of the Chinese for a very long time. But just staying with Taiwan, I wanted to ask you this because last week in Australia, our former Prime Minister Paul Keating publicly described Taiwan as Chinese real estate. I wanted to get your response to that description of Taiwan.
Well, you don't want to get my description of him for saying that. That's ridiculous. It is not Chinese real estate, and he should know that. Taiwan is Taiwan, and it's of the people of Taiwan who have a democracy there. I think that was a stupid statement I have no idea about Keating, but I think it was a stupid statement to make. And I don't know what his connection is to China that he would say such a thing. But it is really not in the security interest of the Asian Pacific region for people to talk that way.
Part of his argument is that Australia should play no part in assisting US attempts to assert power in Southeast Asia. How do you respond to that?
Well, our interest in Southeast Asia relates to the security of the region. It also, for many of the countries there, beyond there, even European countries, is about the freedom of transit in the area in terms of product being moved from one place to another. So this is an economic issue, even if you had no view of the China-Taiwan situation. You know that China cannot tie up the strait there because it would be very detrimental to. So I don't know. Maybe he isn't aware of that or doesn't care about that. But that's I think one of the big motivators for people to be interested in what happens there.
Part of the argument here is that America is not a dependable ally. And given what we saw during the Trump presidency, you'll understand where some of the motivation for that comes from. Is America a dependable ally for Australia?
I think so. I'll tell you, I was in France Europe as speaker at the Speakers G7 conference when the submarine agreement came forward, and the French were very, very unhappy about the U.S., UK, Australian agreement in that regard. And it was pretty persistent in terms of their sending messages to me through their speaker, the head of their National Assembly, they call that, President of the National Assembly, about the displeasure of the French, about our connection to Australia. And I don't know why he would say that, because President Biden has put forth an Asian Pacific agenda, and many of our Atlantic friends are saying, why are you spending so much time there? Well, we spend time with you when we spend time with them. We're talking about the world, and you should have an interest in global security and the economy there as well.
I want to come back to the battle that you're engaged in to keep Donald Trump out of the White House. He's clearly taken America to a dark place. Do you also hold him responsible for the dark place that he took your family to with the terrible attack on your husband in your home?
What was terrible about it from his standpoint was what he said afterward. I don't know how connected, the person who perpetrated the crime, who assaulted my husband, hit him on the head 3 times with a hammer, was espousing Trumpian statements and the rest of that, but we're not all responsible what somebody else says. But when it happened, his children, Republican governor, other Republican leaders made fun of it. They thought it was really a laugh. They told jokes about it on their social media. That was disgusting, and that was directly from him. And of course, he's pathetic. But what was wonderful was the outpouring of thousands and thousands of letters, prayers, thoughtfulness, kindness for my husband that came from all over the world. And that was really a comfort to our family and to our children and grandchildren. It's a traumatic thing to see a former president of the United States make a joke of a near fatal attack on your grandfather or your father. And you have to just move on from him because it was just disgraceful. On the other hand, when he was shot, we all were appalled by that. That was terrible, horrible, horrible. It should never have happened in our country, and thank God. And we prayed that he was not seriously injured, and he wasn't, so that was good.
But there are now 2 very public, along with everything else that happens, 2 very public occasions where people came looking for you, came hunting for you. When that man found your husband, he was looking for you. How do you govern your fear at the very real threats that surround you?
Well, I don't mind so much for me because I have security. I signed up for this. My husband didn't. My children, my grandchildren didn't. And I'm more worried about other people. We don't want this to be a deterrent for anyone to seek public office, especially women who, concerned about children. Men are concerned about their children too, but for some reason, the other side decides they're going to attack women in a very personal way. And when they say to me, you want me to run, but how can I run? I can't take all the slings and arrows that you take. I said, well, you won't because you're not me. But this is not for the faint of heart. You have to understand, you have to know why you are running. What is your purpose? Why are you running? Once you know that, the slings and arrows just bounce off you. But it isn't for the faint of heart. It's a courageous action to run for office. And I'm not talking about physical violence. That has no place. We have to do away with that. But I'm just talking about the political attacks that get personal. What you just should be debating, what are your competing visions for the country in terms of policy and strategy and timing and stuff? And instead of deciding to make personal attacks on people.
Can America...
Political attacks.
Yes. Can America recover in its politics? I'm not saying it wasn't rough and tough before, because obviously it was, but Donald Trump poisoned American politics in a new way. Do you think you can ever go back to the status quo before he came onto the political scene?
Well, we have to. I do believe that when you're in a fight, you can't become them. You can't become them. They're out of the question. But you have to say, what can we do to prevail? Because you have to win to defeat that, but to do so in a unifying way. I keep saying the Republican Party should take back their party. They're a grand old party, did great things for our country, provided great leadership, and now they're a cult to a thug, is what they are. And there should be people who, what they say to me is, we can't beat them in the primary. You have to beat them in the general, and then we can have our debate about the role of the federal government, which has existed since the beginning of our country. We're not running against Bob Dole, Mitt Romney, George Bush Sr., George W. Bush. That was a different kind of a race. You win, you lose, you negotiate, you go forward. This is something quite different, an assault on the democracy, on the Capitol, on the Constitution, on the Congress of the United States. Every day, it took physical form and violent form on January 6th. So we must win that. But we can't, as I say, can't become them in the fight.
I just want to go back to a question I was asking you before, and it was about your experience in Congress and how it prepared you for Trump. I'm not suggesting that your previous, the people you defeated are in any way similar to Trump, but I wanted to understand what it was during those years fighting to become Speaker that changed you as a politician, that forged and formed you as a politician.
Actually, it wasn't that long. That was just a short period of time. You know, I never aspired to run for office. People came to me, asked me to run. I had to think about it because I had absolutely no intention, no ambition, never thought about running for office. I never did. And so then I had to be ready to go when I decided to go. Well, same thing with leadership. I love my committee assignments, intelligence, appropriations, and that. And the role that I played there really prepared me, actually, for when I did become leader and speaker. But then people asked me to do so. What motivated me to, finally agree was I was tired of losing. And losing had impact on America's working families because the Republican Congress was not, shall we say, it was a particularly bad time. Newt Gingrich was Speaker. It was a poisonous time then, and I wanted us to win. So I just demonstrated that I could win elections, and I became Speaker because we won the elections. So that piece of it, that vignette, is not an ongoing thing. No, I was treated with respect, given opportunity in the Congress, in my committee assignment, not in any leadership role. I was never, the first time I ever went into the Speaker's office, the Democratic Speaker's office, was when I became the Democratic Speaker. Before then, I was never Speaker, never invited there for a meeting or anything. But I'd been in the Republican office because I went in there as leader. You know, I was leader. So when we had our meetings, I was there as leader. But I never was in the Democratic Speaker's office.
Nancy Pelosi, thank you for talking to us. And I'm sure on behalf of all our audience, we wish your family and particularly your husband the very best in the weeks and months ahead.
Thank you so much.